There's a kind of tired that sleep doesn't touch. Not exhaustion of the body, but of the soul. You move through the motions, check the boxes, keep the calendar, but something inside you keeps whispering, this can't be all their island. It's subtle, but relentless. That quiet ache when Sunday night comes too soon. The hollow feeling after another meeting, another task, another win, and still, you wonder why it doesn't feel like purpose. You love people. You're faithful. You're grateful. But deep down, you feel misplaced, like a song playing in the wrong room. There's a heartbeat within you that refuses to settle. It knows you were made for more than the grind. More than productivity charts and promotions. More than roles you've outgrown but still perform. Maybe you've asked quietly, God, did I miss it? Wasn't I supposed to feel more alive than this? You're not alone. And no, you haven't missed it. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're being called. Not to a job, not to a title, but to a journey, a sacred one with God as your guide. This isn't about career moves. It's about heart movements. And tonight, you're being invited to remember who you are beyond what you do. Even now, in the stillness, something within you is waking up. A flicker of hope, a trace of purpose, a divine rhythm under the noise. Stay, just for a while. Let's follow that restless heartbeat and see where it leads. You were never meant to live on autopilot. You weren't created just to clock in, clock out, and wonder where the years went. But somewhere along the way, the sacred got buried beneath the scheduled. The spark gave way to survival, and the voice of God, once familiar, became harder to hear through the noise. Maybe you feel it even now, that slow-burning ache of disconnection, not from people, but from yourself, from your soul, from the one who breathed purpose into your lungs before you took your first breath. There's a quiet promise echoing beneath the chaos. Your life is not random. There is a path. And it's not paved with job titles or accolades. It's lined with grace, trust, and discovery. God's call on your life is not a position, it's a posture. It's walking with Him, step by sacred step, even when the road makes no sense, even when the path winds through the unknown. You haven't missed it. You're not too late. You're still on the road, even if it looks nothing like you imagined. This journey isn't about arrival. It's about abiding, about learning to walk by faith, not resume, by presence, not performance. And if something in you still hopes, still reaches, still wonders what God could do with your story, then that's your confirmation. 06. You're still being called. Here, in this moment, you're not just watching a video. You're standing at the edge of a turning. And if your heart feels drawn, stay close with us at .com, called, because the next whisper of peace might be the one that changes everything. Subscribe now, and let's walk this unfolding together. There's a sorrow that comes from following the wrong map. Not out of rebellion, but out of trust. You did what they said was right. You chose the stable path. You made the responsible decision. And yet, here you are. Successful, maybe. Busy, certainly. But somewhere between the milestones and the meetings, your soul got quiet. Not the good kind of quiet. The empty kind. You followed all the signs. You achieved. You performed. But instead of feeling aligned, you feel misplaced. like a traveler with someone else's itinerary in hand. It's disorienting, isn't it? When everything should feel right, but nothing sits right within. When the applause fades, and you're left wondering, why doesn't this feel like calling? The world gives maps marked with status and security. But God gives a compass, one that points not to success, but to surrender, not to certainty, but to trust. And maybe that ache in you right now isn't failure, but invitation. Maybe what feels like misdirection is actually divine redirection, a holy disruption, a mercy that unsettles so you'll return to the voice that first called you. No, you haven't wasted your steps. God never wastes a journey. But today could be the moment you stop chasing someone else's dream and start walking God's road again. What if the ache isn't the end of your calling, but the beginning of something real? Wilderness doesn't always look like desolation. Sometimes it looks like delay, like waiting in a life that once felt full of momentum, like watching others leap ahead while you remain still faithful, still praying, still here. There are seasons in the journey with God that don't make sense on the surface, where doors close, opportunities dry up, and what once seemed so certain becomes vague and quiet. This is the road through the wilderness. It is not punishment. It is preparation. Think of Moses, called by God, yet exiled to the desert for 40 years. David, anointed as king, yet running for his life in the caves. Jesus himself, driven into the wilderness before beginning his ministry. The wilderness is not a detour. It's a divine classroom. It strips away the noise. It reveals what you're still clinging to. It teaches you to hear the quiet voice again, the one who speaks through stillness. It's in the wilderness that your calling is refined. 5. Because calling isn't just about doing, it's about becoming. And sometimes, before God leads you outward, He leads you inward, to face your fears, to release old identities, to surrender the maps you thought you needed. This road isn't quick. It won't be pinned to a 5-year plan, but it's marked by presence. Even in the waiting, God is near. Even in the wandering, He is guiding. Even in the silence, He is speaking. So if your life feels paused, if everything in you is begging for movement but heaven remains still, take heart. This isn't the end. This is the shaping. This is the place where roots go deep, so that when the winds come, you'll remain. You haven't been forgotten. You're being formed. And the wilderness is holy ground. It's tempting to believe that only the big moments matter. The job changes, the open doors, the prophetic words, the breakthroughs. But what if the sacred is hiding in the ordinary? What if your calling is unfolding not just in the mountaintop moments, but in the quiet Tuesday afternoons, in the slow mornings, the mundane routines, the places no one sees but heaven? When Moses stood before the burning bush, trembling and unsure, God didn't ask for credentials. He simply said, "Take off your sandals. The ground you're standing on is holy." Not because of geography, but because of presence. Where God meets you becomes sacred. That means the dishes you're washing, holy ground. The difficult conversation you're dreading, holy ground. The long commute, the caregiving, the paperwork, all of it can become sacred if you recognize who walks with you. Your calling isn't waiting somewhere far off. It's unfolding here, in the obedience of today, in the decision to trust again, even when no one applauds it. God doesn't measure your purpose in stages or salaries. He measures it in surrender, in the posture of your heart as you move through the everyday, and every step you take in trust, no matter how small, echoes in eternity. Maybe today's step is simple: choosing kindness, returning to prayer, laying down comparison, saying yes to quiet. Whatever it is, walk it with reverence, because this moment is not meaningless. It's part of the tapestry. And one day, you'll look back and realize the places you thought were delays were altars. The paths you thought were detours were sacred turns. So lift your eyes, slow your steps, and walk gently. You're on holy ground. Crossroads feel unsettling. They stir the dust. They shake the certainty we thought we needed. Maybe you're standing at one now. A career shift, a relationship changing, a door closing or quietly refusing to open. You ask, which way now? You try to discern the right move, fearing you'll make the wrong one. But in the kingdom of God, crossroads aren't punishments, they are invitations. When the path splits, it's not always a test of knowledge, but a test of trust. It's less about making the perfect choice and more about choosing to walk with the perfect guide. Sometimes, God leads us into liminal spaces, those thresholds between what was and what's next. They feel unstable, unclear, but they are sacred in ways we don't fully understand until we've walked through them. Think of Abraham called to leave what was familiar, without knowing the destination. Or Ruth, who stood at a crossroads of comfort and covenant and chose the harder road that became the doorway to divine legacy. Crossroads demand courage. They force us to slow down and listen. And in that pause, God whispers things we'd never hear if we rushed ahead. Stay here with me. Don't rush the decision. Let me lead, even if it looks uncertain. What if the hesitation you feel isn't fear but reverence? What if this moment isn't about choosing the quickest path, but about aligning with the most anointed one? God's will doesn't always come with neon signs. Sometimes it comes as stillness, a gentle knowing, a deep peace in one direction and unease in another. So if you're at a turning point, breathe. The path is not hidden from heaven, and you are not walking alone. Crossroads are holy ground, not because of clarity, but because of presence. This is where faith takes shape. This is where calling becomes personal. So, don't be afraid to pause, to pray, to choose slowly. Because sometimes, delay is divine protection, and redirection is mercy. And every crossroad is a chance to walk with God in a new way. There comes a moment in every journey when God doesn't give the next step, but asks a question instead. It doesn't come loud. It doesn't come forced. But it comes, and it waits for your answer. It sounds like this: are you willing to keep walking, even when you don't see the destination? That's where the journey shifts. That's where calling becomes personal. Not because the path becomes easier, but because your surrender becomes deeper. Surrender is not weakness. It's strength wrapped in trust. It's laying down your timeline, your need to know, your desire to control the outcome, and instead, choosing to walk with open hands, not just toward a goal, but with a God who guides. Jesus asked it too of Peter when he said, "Follow me," not with a map, not with guarantees, just with love and the invitation to walk by faith. And that same invitation is extended to you now. Not with pressure, not with threat, but with presence. God never demands surrender. He whispers it and waits. So what if your unanswered questions are not abandonment, but alignment? What if the silence is not empty, but sacred space for your yes? You don't need to know every step. You just need to know who walks with you. And when you choose surrender, even in uncertainty, He meets you there, always. Let's pause here together, just for a moment, a guided breath, a whisper of release. Lord, I don't need to see the full map, just show me the next step, and I will follow. Even now, I trust you. Because in the end, your calling was never about reaching a destination, but walking in daily surrender, step by step, still becoming, still following. You weren't made to sprint through life. You were made to walk with God. And the walk has a rhythm, not a rush. The world says hustle, push, climb, arrive. But heaven says pause, listen, wait, receive. The pilgrim's rhythm is slower, sacred, marked not by competition but by communion. God's calling isn't a race, it's a song. And like any true melody, it has highs and rests, movement and stillness, breakthroughs and sacred pauses. When you walk too fast, you miss the music. You miss the subtle shifts, the moments that weren't loud but were anointed. Consider Elijah. After fire and wind and earthquake, the voice of God came in a whisper. Not in noise, but in nuance. This rhythm can feel unfamiliar at first. You'll wonder if you're falling behind. You'll see others posting progress, wins, promotions, and you'll feel the temptation to compare. But the pilgrim knows God's timing is not man's pace, and the deepest growth often happens unseen. In the slow, in the buried, in the in-between. If you're in a season where things feel still, where the momentum has paused, don't mistake it for abandonment. It might just be the rest between the verses. Pilgrims listen, they adjust their pace to the shepherd's steps. They trust the rhythm, even when they don't understand it. What if your delay is a divine cadence? What if the quiet is the space where God prepares you for what's next? The journey isn't always linear, but it's always led. So breathe, slow down. Don't miss the divine rhythm. It's not calling you to speed, but to sink. Because this isn't a chase, it's a pilgrimage, and God walks at the pace of your soul. Every journey eventually passes through the night. Even the most faithful pilgrim will one day find themselves walking without light. It may come slowly, a slow dimming of clarity, or suddenly, an unexpected loss, a closed door, a prayer unanswered. And you wonder, where is God now? Did I miss a turn? Why does everything feel so quiet? 4. But night doesn't mean abandonment. Darkness doesn't erase direction. In fact, it often clarifies it. Because in the night, we stop navigating by what we see and begin walking by who we trust. Faith isn't forged in clarity. It's forged in the unknown. Think of the Israelites, led by cloud by day, but by fire at night. Not a spotlight, not a highway, but enough glow to take the next step. God has not left you. He's drawing nearer. Not louder, but closer. Not with explanations, but with presence. Sometimes, He teaches us to walk by rhythm instead of sight, to trust His timing when the path disappears, to hold His hand when the scenery turns unfamiliar. The night seasons are not detours, they're deeper invitations. To lean in, to become quiet enough to hear the whisper within the silence. You may not feel strong, you may not feel certain, but you are still called. And the night has not changed God's voice over your life. So walk on, even slowly, even trembling, even with tears, because He walks with you in the dark, not ahead of you, waiting, but beside you, holding the weight you can't carry. And morning will come. It always does. But in the meantime, so does mercy, new, even at midnight. When you're unsure about where you're going, sometimes the clearest guidance comes from remembering where you've been. Look back not with regret, but with reverence. Trace the lines of your story, not just the victories, but the valleys, the losses, the late nights when you almost gave up but didn't. Think of the prayers you once whispered, now answered in ways you didn't expect. Or the moments that didn't make sense until time revealed the thread of grace running through them. You're not walking blind, you're walking with a history of faithfulness behind you. Even the detours weren't wasted, even the wrong turns were folded into the story. God is a redeemer of direction. Nothing surrendered is ever lost. Sometimes we forget how far we've come. We forget the strength we built in the silence. We forget the mercy that met us in moments we thought would break us. But memory is a holy tool. It anchors you in the truth. If God was with you, then He is surely with you. Now, David remembered. Before facing Goliath, he said, "The same God who delivered me from the lion and the bear." He reached into the archive of God's faithfulness and found courage for the present. And you can do the same. Your past isn't just survival, it's testimony. It's the echo of a God who never let go. What have you already overcome that once felt impossible? What doors opened only after you thought all options had closed? Remember those. Write them down. Let them speak louder than fear. Let them guide your next step. Because calling isn't always about something new. Sometimes it's about returning to the truth you already know, to the thread you forgot was still there. You've walked this far with grace. You'll keep walking with glory. And the same God who led you through every chapter behind is already waiting in the pages ahead. Now, pause. Look at the journey not as a series of random events, but as a sacred tapestry. Threads of restlessness, wilderness, breakthrough, silence, every step, every season, every shadow, woven together by hands that never lost the thread. This is the sacred synthesis, where the road reveals its rhythm, where what once felt scattered now feels shaped. Your calling was never just a job or a single moment of arrival. It was always a becoming, a partnership, a daily pilgrimage with the divine. Now you can see it, can't you? The way even your delays served a purpose. The way pain opened your ears. The way stillness prepared you to listen again. Every closed door was redirection. Every quiet season was spiritual formation. What the world called lost time, heaven called planting, and what you feared was failure, was simply the pause before resurrection. This is your life, not wasted, not forgotten, not off track, but holy, held, still unfolding. And the most sacred truth of all, God was never asking you to figure it all out. He was asking you to walk with Him, to trust that His hand was steady, even when the map disappeared. You are not late. You are not lost. You are aligned. Your calling isn't somewhere far off. It's in your next yes, your next step, your next quiet surrender. The tapestry continues, but now you walk with new eyes, with sacred memory, with restored rhythm. And when you look back one day, you'll see not a trail of confusion, but a journey of glory. You've walked far not in distance, but in soul. And here you are now, not at an ending, but at a sacred beginning. There is no final arrival in this life, only deeper steps with God, only more quiet turns, more whispered invitations, more soft yeses. So pause, breathe, let your spirit settle into stillness, and join me now in a pilgrim's prayer. Lord, I don't need all the answers. I don't need to see the full horizon, but I do need you. I've tried to carry maps I wasn't meant to hold. I've chased definitions that never satisfied. But now, I choose to walk with you again. Help me trust the steps I cannot see. Help me rest when the road is quiet. Help me surrender when the path feels unfamiliar. Let every morning become a reminder that I'm not behind. I'm becoming. Let every interruption become an invitation to remember that I am not alone. Every footprint you've left in my past has led me here, and every step I take from here will be held in your hand. Let my calling be less about my title and more about my trust, less about doing and more about being present with you. Even when the road darkens, even when the song fades, let me keep walking at the pace of grace. I am yours, and you are my way, now and always. Amen. Friend, if that prayer echoed something deep within you, you're not walking this alone. There's a sacred rhythm here, and it will keep calling you. Let calm, called, be your companion. Not to give all the answers, but to walk alongside you as the next ones unfold. Subscribe now, so when the next whisper comes, you'll be ready to receive it. No striving, just stillness, just presence, just grace for the journey.